Hey guys, if you are thinking about doing some crochet around a piece of fleece to do a nice fleece blanket border, then stick around because this video will help you out. It's full of what not to do's. So I had gotten some fleece and I had kind of been waiting because my friend Leah at Leah Crochets had done some fleece borders and I wanted some tips from her. I was kind of intimidated by this project, and to be honest, I was like mostly intimidated by the skip blade aspect of it. So she put out a tutorial recently, and I will go ahead and link that below so that you can see that because it just kind of helped push me over the edge to get started. So the very first thing I do want to talk about that made me so nervous was the skip blade. So this is a Fiskars brand. It's a rotary cutter. If you haven't used one of these before, people use them a lot of times sewing and in quilting with a blade that is completely solid. And this is called the skip blade because you can see the areas that it skips and then the sharp points. And I had seen a tutorial from Crochet Crowd where it was talking about doing some fleece, and he was pretty adamant about how you use it and the pressure you use, and the biggest mistake is to go and then think that you can go backwards and like go over the same spot, what you think is the same spot more than once, because you'll end up slicing your fleece instead of just creating holes. So I was a little intimidated, and that part actually was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. So I would say don't let that part hold you back. But my biggest tip I have, if you saw my latest thrift haul, I had bought this piece of Iowa State fleece at the thrift store, and I thought, oh, I'll make a scarf. And that did not happen. So can I just say I am so glad I paid $1/4 for this. I would really suggest, if you're planning on doing this, get a scrap piece of fleece. Like either go to the fabric store and look in the little remnant section for something that's, you know, $1 or $2, or go to the thrift store maybe to see if there's like an old fleece blanket, something that you do not care about and that you won't be invested in like monetarily or emotionally if you end up just throwing it out, because this did not make the cut. And I realized, like, as I was getting into it, that it was not working. And I was like, why am I even trying to finish this? This was $1/4. So the other thing is, I had gotten from a friend of mine these Hirschner's Afghan yarn, and she actually had about 20 of these in different colors that she gave me. So I literally had $1/4 invested in this project. This yarn is a 2-weight, and that did come into play in my struggle too. So let's go ahead and get started. I did the skip blade on there, and definitely make sure that if you don't have one of those cool like self-healing mats, I think they call it, definitely put some cardboard or something down so you're not like cutting your carpet or your table or scratching it or anything like that. So I had some cardboard and I went through and did it, and Leah was awesome in her video about showing how to do the corners because that stressed me out a little bit. So definitely watch her video and then maybe come back to this one before you start your project. But to get started, I would say my biggest issue, so when I cut the holes, is dealing with the corners. And Leah had showed a really great technique where you cut the corner diagonally so that you don't end up with a bunch of bulk right here, which is awesome unless you're like me and you take the hole, and well, I had my holes in already and I snipped it way too close to the hole. So and I did it preemptively. I like went through all the corners and snipped them. So what I would really suggest doing is getting your crochets going, and then analyzing when you get to the corner, if you can fold it or if you just need to like snip a tiny little bit and fold it, and then crocheting and then getting to the next corner and analyzing that before you snip. So when I watched Leah's video, she said to use a smaller crochet hook, which definitely helped as far as getting the crochet hook into the punctured pieces. I believe I used a G hook. Is that like a 4.25 or 4.5 or something like that? And it did help. So what I can say is, because my tension wasn't consistent using the skip blade, there was some areas that it did not make it through quite as well. So you can do a couple things. You can really try to ram it in there, which I don't recommend, especially if you're in a corner, you know, too close to the edge. But really all you have to do, since the skip blade would have went up this way, so if you're crocheting, the skip blade went this direction. All you really have to do is grab your fabric like above and below that hole and just kind of give it just a little tug right there. And what I found is that would just stretch those holes out just enough that they would split open. And that was a lot more consistent and safer than trying to shove that crochet hook in there. So that is my tip number one. Another tip I have is what I found I was doing was actually when I went ahead and did my second round, I think some of it is because I was using a 2-weight yarn, but as you can see, can you see all the gathering in that right there and all that puckering right there? That is because I just had too much tension, and what I had to then do to correct that is to go up to a normal for me size crochet hook, going like with a 5.5. Sorry about that interruption. So it is like 95 plus degrees this afternoon, and I don't have a good place to film. We have window air conditioners, so it's just blaring in the living room. So I'm in my kitchen, and like my dog and my husband were coming through, so sorry about that. But that's real life. So anyway, I went up a crochet hook size to prevent more of this puckering and buckling right there on the second project that I will show you. And that worked out a lot better. So that would be another issue. And this sounds so basic, you guys. Like, this sounds so basic. Make sure you're on the correct side of your fleece. Like, duh, right? Like, anyone in their right mind would think of that. So there will be a front and a back side. As you can see with there's a fly. As you can see with this crochet, this was what I was crocheting as the front side. You know, those stitches are nice and neat. And on the back side, number one, I have a little bit of that edge folded, and you can see, you know, the stitches are separated. So this is clearly the back side, but guess what? This is the side of the fleece that was nice and like clear and precise, and this was like kind of the back side where it's just not as clear. Yeah, front side, back side. Yeah, you can tell there's a lot more clarity on this. So yeah, that seemed obvious, but apparently I was just like so gung-ho and ready to go that I did not analyze my fabric. And so yeah, so there will be this little seam right there. So be mindful of that while you're working on the project. So those were my biggest lessons from this. Mind your fabric, figure out which is the front and the back, be gentle with the holes and just like separate slightly to open those up. Don't force your hook through. Like Leah said, use the smaller crochet hook for the holes going into the fleece, but then I would go ahead and jump up a hook size or two, you know, whatever, for the rest of the border so you're not pulling it. And then use a bigger yarn weight. Don't use a real fine yarn weight like this number 2. Probably go with at least a, well, you wouldn't want anything thicker than a worsted. Go with a worsted. How about that? Maybe a 3, I don't know, but yeah, definitely don't use this. And then yeah, get a piece of scrap fabric that you're not invested in, because I would be heartbroken. Like, I have a piece of fleece that I got as a Joann remnant, and it wasn't a remnant, it was in their clearance room, and so it was half off of the sticker price, and it was like their luxe fleece. So I believe I paid $7.50, $8 a yard, and I believe I got a yard and a half, 2 yards. I mean, I paid about 15 bucks for it, which I know in the scheme of things isn't a lot, and it's still less than a blanket, but to me, I was not willing to experiment with that piece of fleece. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I redeemed myself. Okay, here is my fun unicorn fleece blanket. Looks much, much better, doesn't it? So this piece of fleece, if you can see it, it's got some fun unicorns, and look, you can totally tell the back when you're paying attention. This side isn't very defined. This side has nice crisp pictures on it. So this actually wasn't a piece of fleece from the fabric store. I actually got it at Dollar General. So I got it a couple months ago and had been hanging on to it until I watched that video from Leah. And they had some kids blankets that were $8 and they were 80% off. My Dollar General holds true to all the like stereotypes of Dollar Generals. Yeah, it's like chaotic and crazy, and stuff doesn't get put out till after the season. So they really do oftentimes have incredible markdowns. You know, because stuff didn't sell at Christmas because it didn't get put out until January. So I will definitely, as the holidays go on, like I'm gonna check out and see what they have for like fall themed blankets like this. And I will just after every season pick some of those up, because I want to say I paid under $2 for this because it was 80% off of $8. So like what, like $1.60, something like that. And it's a decent, you know, like this would be, I'm an adult and this would be fine for me, like sitting on the couch. So definitely good for a kid. But I went ahead, the only difference I found is with this one, you know, there is a larger seam going along the back of it. So I had to do my skip blade further in, and there is a little more rolled up here along the edges, but I think it's just fine. I don't really see any problems with it at all. It just makes the border seem a little bit nicer and thicker. So I was fine with that, but it looks a little weird and you start wondering if you're doing the right thing when you're cutting it. But so I did just like Leah said, and I did her, I think she called it a window stitch, and I really like how this turned out. Now, I was using the Hirschner's Afghan yarn from my friend, so I actually just tripled it. So there was a fuchsia, lilac, kind of lavender color, and a teal, and I thought those were good to go with the unicorn theme there, but I just held the 3 strands together. So I was worried, but it worked fine going through those holes. Again, I did use a smaller one, and I had to take my time, again, just separating a little bit this way if I, you know, didn't get it through. But then I jumped up to the larger, like the 5.5 for the rest of it. And I did the extra stitches in the corner, like Leah had said, just to get that nice crisp corner. Now here, I did want to show you, because this is a blanket and it had seams, I didn't want to cut into the corner, even though that would have alleviated a lot of extra bulk right here. So I just went in with my thread and kind of pulled it together, because I'll show you what it looks like right here in this corner if you don't. There's just a little bit of a bubble of extra fabric right here. And you can kind of, you know, move your strings over it, but what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just take a little bit more of this yarn and just kind of weave it in to cover it up. So here is the difference in the corners. And again, I really don't think, especially if you were keeping this for yourself, that that's a big deal at all, because it's on the back side of it. But yeah, it looks a little bit nicer just weaving that thread, or it's not thread, it's yarn, weaving that through there. So I feel like I did redeem myself from my first fleece flop. And I am very happy with how this turned out. I want to thank Leah for posting her how-to because it did help me, and it helped me get over my fear of it. And I'm very happy with this blanket and how it turned out. So I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have some fleece, go ahead and dig into it, or get that scrap piece first so you don't end up like Shannon. But yeah, if you have questions about how this went for me, definitely ask them below, and I will make sure I get everybody's answered, you know, if I can, if I know the answer or not. Or also, I'll have Leah's channel link, so you know, you could probably ask her as well. But I do appreciate you guys talking yarn with me today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I think this will be great at like Christmas time or other holidays if you want to make a personalized gift. But you know, you can do this in a couple hours, honestly. So a lot quicker than a regular Lapgan to crochet the whole thing. And you know, like a child is going to be probably happier with these unicorns than something I made. So I think it's a win-win on this one. But let me know what you think down in the comments. And I really do appreciate you guys talking yarn with me. Take care.